Jason Belz back with another episode of All Bells, No Whistles. Another conversation with Michael Kinkelaar, and I'm excited to dive into this one from a parent standpoint, right? Pretty sure my kids are far too young to need a mental performance coach, but we work with a lot of athletes who are very much in this window of maybe needing some assistance, right? So how can we help a parent? What are some, I think warning signs is a bit strong. I think red flag is a social media cool thing to say now.
Yeah.
So as if a parent is listening to this and they're starting to think, maybe my son, my daughter, my child might be struggling with performance anxiety or performance stress or like perfectionism. I think perfectionism is ruining their love for sport, or for whatever reason, the level that they play at has really made their sport more of a job to them, and it looks like they've lost the joy they used to play with. How can we help parents? Like, what do the parents need to know as like, hey, this is something that we can help with?
Yeah. I think you kind of said it in there. That enjoyment factor, that spark, parents, when they see that their kid isn't excited to go to practice or isn't as excited to go and compete, that is a very big telltale sign that, things in their athlete world are maybe crumbling a little bit, right? Maybe their sport really is starting to become and feel like a job that they do, right? So when you kind of see, obviously parents know their kids best, right? You can kind of see that twinkle in their eye, or when that twinkle in their eye isn't there to go and compete and play.
We know them best, but we also are very confused by what we know.
Right. It's a weird
like
conundrum.
We can see the signs, but a lot of times we're like, but what does that sign mean?
Yeah.
And we're also really confused at the same time.
Yeah. I think this is maybe will blow your mind more, but I think when you feel that way as a parent, many times that athlete feels that same way. A lot of times they're aware that, man, it's not as fun. I don't know why I'm not energized to go do this. Like, I used to love this sport, right? And I would say that they probably feel just as confused or kind of taken back by it too, right? Because it used to be this awesome thing that they just loved, and now it's not so much. It feels like work, right? So I would say, if you feel confused as a parent, if you're not sure kind of what's going on with your athlete, it's a good chance your athlete's feeling that same way, and that's a good time to reach out and get a support system kind of going and kind of jump into some of this work to help them. It's not even about increasing their performance at that point. At that point, it's about helping them kind of fall back in love with their sport and with what they're doing.
Yeah. So does a parent hearing this, looking at their athlete and their athlete's relationship with sport, should it start with an athlete-parent conversation, or should it start with the parent-coach conversation? Or is there just so much nuance that we can't really, there's not a one size?
Yeah, there's not a one size. I think, maybe going the parent-athlete conversation route to begin with is probably a good way to go, because that's going to help that parent get a little bit more of a sense of kind of what's going on in that world of that athlete, right? But to the same effect, right, I think gathering some resources, checking out my website and kind of how I go about the process with athletes, and then being able to take some of that information and take it to your athlete as you have that conversation is going to be beneficial, right? Because think back to my 16-year-old self, right? If one of my parents approached me with like, hey, you want to go like work with this mental performance coach, right? Just out of the blue, or just with that only to lead with, I'd probably turn that down and shut that down. But, if a parent comes with, hey, this is kind of how he approaches the work he does with his athletes. Like, here's his website, here's his Instagram. Like, go check him out. Like, let me know what you think.
Yeah,
that might be kind of a good way to start that conversation and let that athlete kind of sift through, what he or she kind of thinks she needs or wants. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably probably putting you on the spot here a bit, and if I am, I apologize. You can say no answer. But kind of the first conversation with an athlete when as a parent, I feel like something's off. I'm watching my kid not having fun. You know, I'm pretty sure the question isn't like, "Hey Brooks, why do you hate soccer all of a sudden?" I'm sure that's not the best question to ask. Is there, because I'm sure the kid's probably sensitive about it. As you said, they're probably aware that something's different.
Yeah.
Could you give is there a little template or a question that would be much better than my undereducated approach of like, hey man, like it looks like you hate your sport, or maybe that is a good one. Maybe that's just like straight to it. Like,
yeah,
I see this. It looks like you hate your sport, man. Tell me about it.
That's, to be honest, that's not a bad way to approach it. Right. And once again, depends on your kid at home, your athlete at home, and kind of your relationship and how you talk to each other and the comfort levels there. Right. So for Brooks, if that's kind of how you guys converse, I don't think that's necessarily a bad way to go. On the flip side, right, maybe a better, a little more refined way to ask it is like, hey, you know, what are you enjoying about soccer right now? Mm-hmm. Right. And, you know, obviously if they're struggling, if they're really not enjoying it, it's going to be really hard for them to come up with an answer. Right. And if they give you that, right, or essentially when they don't give you much, right, because they don't have a good answer for that at the time, like, you can go a little farther in that conversation, but that kind of tells you all that you need to know, you know, and if they struggle to come up with any reasons or how they're having fun, you know, that might be time to kind of get some help and reach out. Yeah.
Okay. That said, parent listening to this, mm-hmm. how can they find you? How can they reach out to you to have that conversation of, is my athlete in need of your assistance?
Yeah. Reach out directly through my website or my Instagram. Shoot me a message. Generally what happens with parents when they reach out is I schedule some time to just talk with them one-on-one, 10, 15, 20-minute phone call, mm-hmm. or meet in person, whichever they prefer, and just give them a chance to kind of explain to me what's going on in their athlete's world, and then obviously give me an opportunity to kind of explain how I could come in and help, what would that look like, right? All of the kind of intricate details of what starting sessions would look like. And, you know, there'll be times too where I've had parents kind of reach out to me and, you know, there aren't really a huge bunch of red flags, right? But their athlete is just wanting to get better and grow skills, mm-hmm. right? They might not have like this big giant performance barrier standing in their way. And, you know, sometimes parents are like, well, there's nothing really going on, but like, should they kind of start with some work? And I go, yeah, absolutely. Right. If I can build their toolbox before they're struggling with confidence, before they're feeling burnout, then, mm-hmm. you know, we're preventing all of that back wave of performance.
Mental injury prevention.
Exactly. Essentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, parents reach out to me and I'll sit down and talk with them and kind of work through what I got going on.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. This was fun as always. Appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.